Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk Sports Edition with your host, Brian Poduska. I am not Brian. I am the co-host and the creator of The Difference. Today, we're going to be talking about Cowboys. Are they a Super Bowl contender, or is everybody setting themselves up for a big letdown? Also going to be talking about local high school sports here in the DFW area. We've got, I think, the top 25 we're going to talk about. We'll talk about a game that we had as our feature game last week, the Don Bosco Braves against Mater Dei. Number one, number two in the nation. They squared off, and we'll tell you how that turned out. And we got a few more things we're going to talk about, but stick around, and we will. Let me find what I'm looking for here, and we'll get the show started now.
Tune in to watch our community.
Whoops, wrong one.
Welcome to Real Talk Sports Edition with Brian Poduska, where you will get sports talk and sports opinions hotter than a Texas summer.
Are you ready?
What is up, sports fans? Good to see everybody. Lennon, thanks for that intro. Everybody,
It wasn't the greatest.
Everybody gets to see just how difficult it is to try to produce a show and actually run a hook point and then come on the show. So I love it because it just shows how much work you're doing behind the scenes. So thank you for all that you do for this show. Like you said, we've got a lot on tap today. Are they the Super Bowl Cowboys? Who knows? Let's find out. We'll get into that a little bit. We've got Nathan Smith coming on the show a little bit later. We can talk about that, deep dive into the Cowboys' big win over the Rams this past weekend, and the even bigger game coming up this coming weekend versus the Eagles. So battle for the first place there. We had, speaking of first place battles, had the number one and number two teams in the nation at the high school level. Out in the LA area, our friend of the program, Coach Negro, was on the show last week previewing that. We'll dive into that a little bit. Coach Negro's team, St. John Bosco Braves, lost a close one, so we'll get into that a little bit in the show here. A few other things going on. We didn't talk about this pre-show, but I thought about it after you and I had exchanged some text messages earlier this week. This Dallas Stars kick off the season tonight, so we could talk a little bit of hockey. I like that one. Why don't you come on in, Lennon, and let's kick it off here, buddy.
All right, man. So I've made two mistakes since I started doing this. Actually, I made a lot of mistakes, but two of them that were really visible. So there you go.
Well, hey,
I was like, that doesn't sound like the right intro.
Yeah, well, hey, we're all human, so and look, like I said, you're wearing multiple hats here, so I can't even imagine how you do it. So, let's kick it off with the high school game last week, number one versus number two. St. John Bosco Braves, number one team heading into the game versus the Mater Dei team number two in the country. Big time LA game, right? Big time national exposure. These two programs perennially just, near the top of the national rankings. There you go. There's the Bosco Braves. All right, we got some live footage. Sweet. We had Coach Negro on last week. Like I said, friend of the program. He came on in the beginning of the football season. The Bosco Braves came out here to Dallas-Fort Worth area, played the Allen Eagles, first football game of the season.
Hey, who's that guy? Did you see that?
No, I didn't. I wasn't watching the screen.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me get that.
Oh, is that
Did we not get it? Here we go. It's coming up.
Oh, we got a few college influences going on there, huh?
Yeah, a little Lincoln Riley.
So some recruiting going on. I heard Link was patrolling both sidelines, trying to persuade some of the 70 players on both teams combined who have an FBS offer already in their pocket. So just to give you an idea of the talent level at these schools. So yeah, Lincoln Riley was out in full force. It's now his backyard. And he, in addition to the number of folks that he brought over from Oklahoma, he's now hitting them up as well.
Yeah.
Which that's another one we can talk about a little bit later. The Red River beatdown, I'll call it. Wasn't quite the showdown. So after that OU team has been just stripped of a lot of talent with that coaching move, Texas really brought it to them and showed just how good they can be with Quinn Ewers. But yeah, so here's some of the highlights. It's so I was saying, after talking to Coach Negro, I went out and I asked him on the show last week, how the heck can we see it? So he said it was on Bally Sports. So realizing that here in Dallas, we're not getting that Bally Sports, we're getting our version of it. So I went out and I bought the Bally Sports Plus, which allowed me to get into the Southern Cal, the SoCal region games. So I was able to watch this now. I couldn't get the sound for some reason, but I saw the game last week on TV, and then I listened to it on the radio. And, I mean, the summary of this game was old school, hard-hitting football. So it was a defensive battle. It was 17-7 was the final score. It was 7-7 at halftime. Or was it 10-7? I can't remember exactly what it was at halftime, but it was your traditional old school two defenses, just hard hitting. Not a ton of turnovers, but just a lot of third down stops. Bosco did suffer a couple key injuries. Their quarterback got knocked out at halftime. They put him in the concussion protocol, so their starting quarterback didn't come back for the second half. One of their stud wide receivers also got hurt. Their safety got hurt, their starting safety. So when I say hard hitting, these guys, they took some tough injuries during the game. There's that pick that I was talking about. So Bosco turned it over early, and then Mater Dei made him pay. But then Bosco pretty much held. You'll see quite a few of these highlights involve their running back. So their quarterback, junior kid, he's undefeated in high school. I think this made him 24-0. His stats weren't eye-popping, but there's a nice pass there. He took care of the ball, made some key third down conversions. Their running back, he was well over 100 yards. I'll tell you what, the Bosco touchdown, I'm sure we'll see it in these highlights. It was their running back who he's a bruiser. He's 6'3", 230 pounds, and he just took about 4 people with him into the end zone. So yeah, it was a pretty awesome game. Cool environment, right? Like you can see in these highlights, everybody's on their feet the entire time. Santa Ana Stadium in Santa Ana, California, seats about 9,000 people. It was a packed house. Plenty of articles that I read about ticket prices for the game were going for upwards of, it sold out in a matter of minutes. So aftermarket ticket prices were going for over $500 a pop for a high school football.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So pretty wild. Awesome environment. Obviously they had some good cameras out there, so there was some pretty good production value. And they had, they were interviewing both of their coaches. So if you saw the show last week, we had Coach Negro on, who's awesome, super engaging, super, passionate about what he does and what he does with the Bosco boys. He's a Bosco Brave himself, graduated in 91, played on the team. So talk about somebody who gets it. He certainly does. And then what I didn't know, I learned more about the Mater Dei coach. He's been at it for 35 years. He's got one of those big old, grizzly mustaches. He looks like
he looks like he came off of Yellowstone. Looks like he took his cowboy hat off.
Right. Yes. If he had a cowboy hat on, it would be perfect. So unfortunately, I didn't get to hear the interview with him because it was, like I said, I didn't have sound on my TV, but he's been in the program for a long time. I was reading up on it, 35 years. So and apparently he's going to be back for another one, is what they're saying. So ended up not going Bosco's way. So Mater Dei moves into number 1 in the country. I saw Bosco drop to number 4 in the polls. It's anybody's guess, but most likely based on what Coach Negro said and how they seed the playoffs in California, and especially in that region, those two will be on opposite ends of the brackets. So, if odds play out, there's going to be another matchup of those two teams. I think it said November 25th is that final game. So, we'll circle that on our calendar. Hopefully, get Coach Negro back on the show.
They actually dropped from 1st to 4th.
Yeah.
That kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
But, I that's the first thing I thought when I, was listening to it and realized they were going to lose. I'm like, I bet they meet again.
Yeah. Yeah. So November 25th is when that championship game is. And, if each one of them holds court, then they'll be in that game together again. Now, hopefully, with Bosco, I haven't seen the prognosis on the injuries that they suffered, so I don't know. But like I said, they've got 38 players on their team that have FBS offers in their pocket already. So I'm guessing they can probably reload if they are suffering from injuries.
So, it kind of hit me the other day because when you were talking to Coach Negro and you said that, and then I went back and did the math. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like 38 people on one team.
Yep.
And you have 22 starters.
Yep. So you're backing up, and maybe, who knows, even third stringers may already have a D1
That's
offer.
incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. And I had some buddies of mine who I said it last week that one of the guys on our text string he was out in California for 15 years in the LA area, so he knows the scene out there with the football. And the other guys who grew up with me in the Chicago area, they're like, so what is this, like a college prep school, or like how these guys get their talent? And I said, yeah, it sort of is, and they can recruit really the state of California, and people will leave their hometowns from Northern California and come to Southern California for the opportunity to play for one of these programs that have several Heisman Trophy winners. If you were watching the game, they went down, and on the scroll at the bottom, they'd show, all right, Heisman Trophy winners for Mater Dei. They had Matt Leinart and, a couple other ones, and Matt Barkley and some other ones that were, big-time NFL quarterbacks, or at least big-time college quarterbacks that ended up going to the big show. So, yeah, it's an opportunity that is unique to those schools in particular that you play for that program. Even if you're a second stringer, you're potentially getting a college offer and certainly tons of visibility. So yeah, it's a unique scene over there. And that, who they play, when you look at they purposely schedule national powerhouse teams to travel to, or have them travel to if they can. But they have the budget to do it, and they'll go out and seek those teams out, and to bolster their strength of schedule. So when they beat them, which usually happens, they're at or near the top of the rankings. So
I guess I would describe it, the more that I've listened, and the more that we talk to Coach Negro and I get to understand it, I think it's more like a minor league college team. I mean, that's really what it would be, like minor league baseball, minor league college, because other than the upper level, and there's probably some of them that could start right now for some schools. I know Arkansas would take every defensive back they've got. But, we talked about that the other day about could they beat a college team? And obviously I don't see them beating Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State and USC. But I think there's a lot of college teams, a couple of weeks ago, I bet they could have beat Nebraska. But, I was just looking at that, and those linemen, they look like college linemen. They don't look like high school linemen.
Yes, they do. And I don't know, because you mentioned it earlier, the numbers, 38, and you got 22 starters. So my guess is that they're going 2 or 3 deep with scholarship level players on their lines, because both their offensive defensive lines they got some horses up there, which is, a pretty good indicator. Both of those teams have phenomenal defenses. Bosco, I think, is regarded as probably the best defensive team in the country, right?
Right.
And, Mater Dei certainly looked the part as well. So you have some high-skilled defensive backs, and then you have just some super athletes, big, strong, fast, up front on the defensive lines. And it showed, because there wasn't a whole lot of running room, even with, the beast that they had at running back. It was tough to gain yardage. I mean, I think the stats were something like 15 carries, and he had 108 yards. So pretty good average per carry. But for a stud like that in high school, I'm guessing all of his other games, he's probably averaging 6 or 8 yards a carry, based on just who he is and what his build is and how fast he is. So, it's an interesting what if. Like, what if they played a lower level D1 Power 5 school? I mean, heck, Nebraska's a good example. I wouldn't say the program's lower level, but they're obviously in a downturn right now. Program in disarray. What would happen if they played a Bosco or a Mater, or even put an all-star team between those two teams, and could they hang?
So at risk of offending anyone, I'm thinking North Texas.
Okay.
What would it look like if they played North Texas?
Yeah.
Because if you've got that many D1 scholarships or FBS offers, you've got some depth. I mean, your second team is pretty solid, and so never get to see it happen, but it's fun to talk about.
Yeah, well, it would be a fun one. Well, you know what, the tool that Coach Negro showed us last week, if they could just incorporate some college teams in there. Remember that? That would.
I tell you what, I spent a little bit of time with that. I played around with it, and it's really pretty neat. And I do wish they had that set up for college. I wonder, and because I got to thinking about the same thing, I'm like, I wonder if they don't do that because of betting lines.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, because there'd be all kinds of different simulators for that, which I'm sure there are, but they're, sure you have to pay for them, or somebody has some tool that they're already making money on. But yeah, that's a good point. That's probably exactly why they don't do it.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So yeah, that was a heck of a game. Just looking really quickly at some of the local high school stuff, we can wrap up the high school level, and we can take a break here. Let some commercials play. We've got a ton of commercials, political commercials, so stay tuned for that, because we haven't been inundated enough with that. Some rainbow fentanyl, maybe. You pick it, your favorite political commercial. So anyway, joking aside, last week there weren't a ton of local high school upsets. I'm always looking for those. So most teams held serve. Good game that happened last week. We had Duncanville, number 2 in the area, or number 1, depending on what poll you're looking at. It's either them or Denton Guyer. So number 2, Duncanville, playing at home against Waxahachie, who's ranked number 16. 24-7, Duncanville comes out on top. Number 7, South Lake Carroll, who's also ranked nationally. I believe they were like 16 or 17 on that list.
Let me pull it up.
Yeah, so they're ranked nationally as well. They are number 7 in the area here. South Lake Carroll's 23 according to Max Preps nationally. So 16th in the area, 7th in the area. Nail biter versus Keller, 38-35 at home. So the Dragons win at home. And then I like to always pull up the scores of friends of the program, coaches that have been on. Allen looked like they were on bye last week, so Coach Wigginton's been on the show. They were on bye. Coach Ford, head coach of Plano Senior, was also on bye last week, so didn't have scores for them to report. But Coach Novikov with the Parish Episcopal, number 8 ranked team in the area here, took on Bishop Lynch and handled them 44-0. So, congrats to Coach. They're getting their feet together underneath them here after they had a loss earlier in the season versus a ranked team. Who was it? That was Oak Cliff, South Oak Cliff.
It was South Oak Cliff, yeah.
Yeah. So they lost to them in a tight one, but and South Oak Cliff has really come on too. So they're starting to live up to their preseason billing as well. So those were some of the highlights from last week. Looking at the games coming up this week, we've got some good ones. Duncanville, who's number 2 in the area, they're 5-0. They're taking on Mansfield, who isn't ranked, but they're 6-0. So Duncanville playing at home. Interested to see how that one shakes out. Number 3, Allen, like I said, Coach Wigginton, friend of the show. They are 5-1. Their one loss being to Bosco in the beginning of the season, so they lost to the number 1 team in the country. They are ranked number 3 in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Allen is, and they're also ranked nationally. They are 5-1, taking on the 5-1 McKinney team. So that's at the Allen Eagle Stadium. We've got number 10 Argyle, 6-0. They're taking on Emerson. I believe that's Frisco Emerson, and they're 7-0. I was surprised to see that. And then a little shout out to my kids' school. So Frisco, the OG, the Frisco Raccoons, they're 5-1, playing at home, and they've got Frisco Heritage 6-1. So that should be a good one.
Don't underestimate a fighting raccoon.
Yeah, man, don't piss off a raccoon.
They're vicious.
Then what do we have? We got this was another one I plucked out. So number 6, Byron Nelson. They are 6-0, and they're playing Keller, who is not ranked, but they're 5-1. And I think Keller, the only loss that they have is against South Lake Carroll. So that should be a good one. That's at Keller. So I would mark that one. If you're able to go to that, look it up. And then finally, Coach Ford, friend of the program, Plano Senior, they're 4-2. They've got Louisville. They're playing at home. They've got Louisville, who's 5-1. They're number 22 in the area. So that should be a good one. We talked to Coach Ford a couple weeks ago, and they've lost a couple of real close ones, one on the last play of the game, and then they've taken care of some of their crosstown rivals too in Plano. So they're at 4-2, and they're playing at home, so that should be a good one.
Yep. Can we call ourselves a good luck charm? Aren't they 0-2 when he came on, and now they haven't lost a game? So
yeah, I think we're worthy. Let's at least anoint ourselves that, and
okay,
we'll go with it.
Until somebody disputes it. I wouldn't ask Coach Wigginton that, and I might not ask Coach Negro that now. But
yeah, that's true. Let's put those aside. We'll go with just how about for local folks, right? Because nobody hasn't lost. Wigginton's
within the state of Texas. We'll just within the state of Texas. So
okay, fair enough.
We're gonna count our small victories.
I love it. All right, cool. Well, that should wrap up our high school. Let's let our advertisers get a little love here. Let's run. The rest of the show will be political commercials since the races are coming up. I'm kidding. We're going to come back and we're going to talk Cowboys. But until then, let's hear from our sponsors.
The difference is made possible by the following small businesses.
Real property management focus. An unmatched level of service to property owners, investors, and tenants throughout the DFW Metroplex.
Katie Owen, the insurance gal, helps overwhelmed Medicare-eligible people successfully navigate the enrollment process. When turning 65, retiring, and signing up for Medicare for the first time, it can be confusing. So it's important to get guidance from someone you can trust. Katie helps her clients navigate the enrollment process in a way that eliminates the feeling of being overwhelmed and unsure and leaves her clients feeling relieved and confident. If you have questions about the Medicare process and want advice from someone you can trust, reach out to Katie at 972-943-3943 or at her website, www.insgal.com.
When you need a trusted roofing company on your side to help you out with storm damage repair for your roof, call Cook DFW Roofing. Serving Anna, Melissa, Princeton, Prosper, Van Alstyne, and all of the DFW area.
Red Branch Realty and owner realtor Ashley Gentry are true champions at every level. As a top producer, Ashley Gentry and Red Branch Realty truly embody their mission of being your supporter and partner in your personal real estate journey. So if finding the best representation possible in achieving the American dream of homeownership is important to you, give Ashley a call at 972-342-1869.
For more information about our sponsors and their services, or if you would like information on how you and your business can partner with or sponsor this show, or others like it, just check the show description or comments for the relevant links and contact information. And now back to the show.
All right. Thank you, sponsors. What Daniel Cook's ad didn't mention is how they've secured the border with Mexico to get the shingles across the border. So vote for Cook DFW Roofing.
Daniel's amazing.
Yeah, just a little. We got to throw a little love that way because all the political ads we're hearing on the radio is just driving me nuts. So, all right, how about them Cowboys, huh? I mean, who would have expected this? I sure didn't.
If you would have, everybody said it, but if you would have said after we're going to lose to Tampa Bay with Dak, he's going to get hurt, and Cooper Rush, who has not shown anything. Cooper Rush, obviously he can play, but tell me over how many years he's been there, and he's played in preseason and a little bit. Did you ever really believe in Cooper Rush that would come in and I just was praying he wouldn't let us get our ass beat real bad. And I mean, when you watch the game and you go back and watch it again, his reads are good. I'll tell you what it reminds me of right now, and I don't want to jinx it. When Trent Dilfer was at Baltimore and their defense was so dang good, and all he had to do is get in there and not screw up.
Right. That's a good one. I haven't heard that comparison, but I think it's totally accurate. You know, they say the bus driver, right? It has a negative connotation, I suppose, but your whole thing about being a bus driver is safety, right? You don't really
get them from point A to point B and nobody dies. That's it.
Right. Yeah. And so far he's done that. And I mean, this last game against the Rams was a perfect example. It didn't do anything special, but didn't turn the ball over. Didn't make, the throws. You're just like, what the hell? And he certainly saw plenty of pressure. That's the one thing that I think I've been most impressed with him about is when the pressure comes his way, and it's come, and especially with, the Rams, Donald and all those guys, they brought pressure. He took a couple big hits. Ramsey hit him pretty good last game, but generally speaking, he's handled that pressure very, very well. Not making the panic throw, throwing the ball away when he needs to, eating the ball, I guess. You never really want to do that, but he certainly, he's made good decisions, which.
Yeah, he has.
I mean, and yeah, your analogy to the Ravens with Dilfer, it's spot on because, they've been historically, who are some of the best defenses? It's these guys right here in 85. It was that Raven Super Bowl team. And the Cowboys, I tell you, I had in my notes here a question that I want to ask you or whoever may chime in on in our ticker here or in our comments section. But are the Cowboys the best defense in the NFL this year? I don't know what the statistics say, but man, the eye test sure says it. I mean, there's a perfect example right there on that highlight. That was early in the game, the first couple
second
minutes.
play, I think.
Yeah, yeah, that was. I think that's when we were sitting down to have our difference meeting.
Yeah, I was on my second beer when the second play. And
oh man, it was wild. Yeah, there's a little bit of the shenanigans that the Cowboys saw when they had a new snapper, new long snapper this week. So, but yeah, this defense, Micah Parsons is friggin' badass.
Yep.
He's one of those players like Aaron Donald that you have to plan around. You have to know where he's at on the field all the time. I knew the guy was a beast at Penn State. He didn't play the COVID year, so it was one of those where everybody kind of knew he was a good player, and you looked at his combine test. I didn't realize the dude ran a 4.3 as a linebacker.
I didn't know that, but no wonder nobody can block him.
Yeah. So
Geez,
not
I mean,
only
you're not seeing that he could go play corner.
well, and he does. If you watch him, his coverage, he'll take on a wide receiver, and he's as fast, if not faster, than most of them. He clocked a 4.3 and change at the combine, which, I mean, the linebacker who can do that, you put him on the edge, look out.
Yeah.
So he's a dude you got to look at, or you got to know as a quarterback or whoever, or your blocker. He's messing up all your schemes. Trayvon Diggs, whatever. He's kind of your boom or bust type player, but he didn't get a pick, did he, or did he? In the Rams game, I can't remember. But
I don't remember. I don't think he did.
He had 2 games in a row before that where he did get a pick. So yeah, then we had the block punt. Oh yeah, and that's another one. You got 2 weeks in a row where linemen have just stepped up, and it was Lawrence 2 games ago, and defensive player of the week this week. So yeah, I mean, back to your original question about Cowboys, are they Super Bowl contender? If you think they've got the best or one of the best defenses in the league, defenses wins championships, right? So it's hard to say they're not a contender if nobody can score against them.
I think this week's going to tell us a lot, because I think, obviously Philadelphia is doing well. Jalen Hurts is doing well. They were wanting to trade him and get rid of him last year. So the talk went, but looks like he's doing what I think everybody was hoping that he would do if you're a Philly fan. But I mean,
they'll still throw frozen batteries at him if he throws a pick in December.
Right. I think a game's going to tell us a lot. I really do.
Yeah.
I mean, if we go in and we poop the bed, then we got to look at this like, well, there's the real Cowboys, and they play good sometimes and not. It's just the consistency with them. If they go up there and compete and maybe not win, but it's a pretty tight game, or they pull out the win, and then I think you can say at that point that people are going to be paying attention to them.
Yeah, dude. I mean, if they even if they lose in a tight game with their backup quarterback, again, not making mistakes, but if they come out of that with a win or a tight loss, I'd absolutely have to say they're top at or near the top of the conference. So that because then you bring back Dak, assuming that he's able to come back 100% healthy. He adds elements of, okay, it's not just driving the bus. Now you've got actual threats. You've got, obviously the first game against Tampa Bay was awful, but you're also working with a receiving core that has barely played together. You didn't have Gallup at the time. He's back. Pollard is now being utilized more in that offense to create another weapon. So you could make the argument that you're turning from an offense that's just trying to stay above water to one that can actually swim pretty well. And then you've got a defense that's just badass. That'll get you pretty far. Just ask the 49ers. It's kind of been where they've been at for the last several years.
Here's what concerns me, though. Since Dak broke his ankle, I don't know if the coaches have, reeled him in and not let him run much, or if he's just not being aggressive in the runs like he was in the beginning. And I think that's what led to his success. I think that's what made a lot of his passes easier. It's kind of odd, because sometimes I wonder about his accuracy, and then he seems to throw better on the run.
Mm-hmm.
Cooper looks like that, he's settled in as a drop back passer, as an in the pocket passer. Dak, I'm not sure I'm not sure I would describe him that way. He just seems to be, and I think it's because it kind of discombobulates the defense when he breaks the pocket and starts to run. You got linebackers and defensive backs going, do I stay back and cover, or do I come up and, try to take him down? And I think that he's played to his advantage. And so from a coaching standpoint, I'm almost like, man, what's the call here? And I hate that. Well, he's the $40 million man. Screw that. I want to win football games. Obviously, the chemistry and everything you're doing, the whole game plan that you have is working. What happens if you come in and it all falls apart and it's all for
Dude,
nothing?
okay, so a couple things. First of all, let's give credit where credit's due. Shout out to the birthday boy, Jerry Jones. Turns a crisp 80 years old today.
Retire, Jerry.
Yeah. So the reason I bring that up is because of that. No matter how effective Cooper Rush is, he will never be the regular starting quarterback, no matter how much he jokes about there being a quarterback controversy. Although I like to see him
he's
and
got to look like a genius.
I'd like to see him and McCarthy line up some Johnny Walker Blue and just see who could throw down the most. That'd be an interesting battle.
That would be fun to watch.
Joking aside,
that was an incredible catch.
Yeah, no doubt.
Oh my God!
And I think that's an enormous addition to the team, right?
Yeah.
It opens up Lamb, just opens up the field. You can then run Pollard up the middle. His speed. You got Zeke as the banger.
Yep.
A very expensive banger, by the way.
By the way, I just got a text from Nathan. He's not going to be able to make it today, so it's just you and I.
All right, that's cool. Well, sorry to hear that. Little plug for Nathan's show, though. Community Difference Plano that's expanding, right? Coming up here for the next couple weeks or months, depending on how quickly we can get that aligned. But
yeah, we've got Community Difference Plano. We're going to be adding Allen and McKinney. Rockwall's coming on board here soon. We had hoped that we would have those on sooner. We started Plano back in the spring, and just getting the connections made, the coordination with some of the organizations that we want to involve, so that we can get the word out on what they're doing for the city and all of that. Nathan has added Plano sports on his. He does a small segment each Tuesday about the Plano schools and what they're doing. So that's why we wanted to have him on today to talk a little bit about that. But really cool shows. I mean, they are. If you live in any of those communities or live next to one of those communities and want to know what's going on, where to shop, where to eat, what's going on economically, nonprofits, that's what these shows cover.
awesome. I was just looking at some of the other games in the NFL. I'm wearing my Walter Payton Bears jersey today because we've got a Thursday night. All eyes are on this one. The highly anticipated rolls off the tongue Bears versus Commanders game featured on Thursday Night Football. The ratings are probably going to be awful. The only thing that might buoy it is the fact that you've got two larger population cities that have the only game in town. But yeah, so not a whole lot to say about that other than those are two pretty bad football teams. Although I don't know, with Justin Fields, the verdict is still certainly out, but has played well at least the back half of last week's game and shown some flashes of what they think his potential is and should be. So we'll see. Hopefully he can shred the vaunted Commanders defense. Oh wait, Redskins, whatever team they are. I was just looking down the slate of games. So we've already touched a little bit on the Cowboys at Philly, so that's going to be a good one. That's the Sunday night game, so that's 7:20 p.m. Prior to that one, because we're in Dallas here, I hadn't heard much talk about this game, but Buffalo at KC, how about that?
Ooh, that'd be worth watching.
Yeah. So I just pulled it up. What do you think the spread is on that one?
Where's it going to be? Is it at KC?
Buffalo at KC.
6.
For who? Who's favored?
I would say the home team.
Dude,
And that's why I would pick the Bills.
So the reason I ask you, I just looked at it. So it's Buffalo -3 at KC.
Okay.
So KC's getting 3 at home.
That'd be a tough bet.
Yeah, well, it's one of those, I don't know. I would have thought that would have been close to a pick on myself, but Buffalo being favored was a surprise to me. So, yeah, that's a good one. Those are going to be two good ones in a row. You got Buffalo at KC at 3:25 Central. So that's the afternoon game to watch, and then you've got the Cowboys on in the evening. Scrolling down the other games, nothing else that's really popping out as super fun.
Well, Denver's playing.
Yeah, Denver's that's a Monday night game. Denver at the Chargers.
How's that Russell Wilson thing going?
Well, Seattle likes it.
Yeah.
Early on in the season, I was surprised to see when they played, what was it, the first game of the year, Russell Wilson getting booed in Seattle when Denver played in Seattle, and didn't realize just how much, I guess, vitriol there is there. So, yeah, they're not too butthurt about seeing his early season.
So I didn't keep up with that. Was he traded? Did he want to leave? Was it a contract deal? Because I was under the impression that he didn't want to leave Seattle, but Seattle wanted to get rid of him and move in a different direction.
Yeah, I don't know all the detail behind it, but I think he might have said that in the press, but I think he also behind the scenes was bad talk in the organization. At one point he was demanding a trade. I think it was last year.
Okay.
So I think, whatever.
Then I don't feel sorry for him.
Yeah, and it's one of those that he's brought him a Super Bowl, but once you start doing some of that underhanded stuff, and your memories become real short at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then whatever. That whole drama between him and Pete Carroll, and I don't know. I haven't kept up on exactly what's going on out there, but I don't know, man. Geno Smith, he's playing pretty well.
Yeah,
so,
I was noticing on fantasy last night. He's one of the top pickups right now.
Yeah, he's not available in most leagues, and but yeah, if he is, he certainly got snapped up after last week. I was reading something where he was QB ranking, right, in his given week. He's gone from QB7 to QB4 to QB3 to QB2. So he's been top 7 in 4 games, and he was 3-2 ranked the last couple weeks. So yeah, it's good value if you got him.
Yep.
If not, too bad. How are your fantasy teams doing?
Mine?
Yeah.
I played fantasy football for 2 years, and it frustrated the hell out of me. I'm going to tell you why. As a coach, I went into fantasy not really understanding it and just realized real quick, you don't have the same insight and control that you do as a coach.
Right.
And I'm like, I was coaching at the same time still, and I was like, no, I'll just stick with coaching. I don't want to be a fantasy owner. I sucked at it. And it was like every freaking time I picked, I didn't really understand how serious some people took it. And every time that I would get my starting lineup, half of them would be hurt, scratch, whatever. And I'm like, finally, I just gave up. I'm like, screw it. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm taking my ball and going home.
Well, unless you're into sabermetrics, a lot of people are in the same boat. Like, just screw it. I don't have the time for it. I can't keep up with injuries, all that stuff. So,
Well, that's another thing, Brian, is I was like, do I need one more thing to become obsessed over and take
right,
up time?
right.
No.
Yeah, and that's certainly it can certainly become a time suck. So I've gotten more efficient with it over the years, where I don't, I've got a couple websites where I check, hey, who are the key people to pick up this week? If they're available, great. If not, no big deal. And then I just every Sunday morning I'll check to make sure that the injuries are, if I don't have anybody starting who's injured, and then I'm good to go. All right, so let's do this real quick. We've got two more topics that I want to cover before we wrap up today, and that is quick recap of a couple games from last week on the college side, a couple upcoming games this week. I want to mention that if you look at the top 25 rankings now, my Fighting Illini are now number 24. So I got to call them out after
Big Brett Bielema.
Big old Brett Bielema, the Fighting Jen Bielemas, whatever you want to call them. They have snuck into the rankings after a whopping 9-6 victory over the Iowa Hawkeyes. So, winning ugly is a thing. The Illini are doing it, so I'm glad to see that they've snuck into the rankings. But going back on the games last week, so we mentioned at the end of the show the Red River Showdown, Red River Rivalry, Red River Shootout, whatever you want to call it. It was certainly the Red River Blowout or Red River Dud.
Massacre.
Yeah, so OU's been, they tumbled down the standings, and then all of a sudden you just see how bad they are. So not much to talk about on that one. But I do want to talk about some of the, parity at the top of the rankings on the college side, and then I want to touch on the stars. Let's do that on the backside of a break right now. So go ahead and hit that break, and we'll cover that on the backside.
The difference is made possible by the following small businesses.
Are you in the market for a new or used car or truck? Then contact Derek Wallets at Sam Pack's 5-Star Ford in Carrollton, Texas today. With Derek's 20-plus years of experience in automobile sales consulting and Sam Pack's 42 years of exceptional service in the DFW community, you will quickly understand what it means to experience the Sam Pack difference. So give Derek and Sam Pack 5-Star Ford a call today at 972-299-0028 or email him at dwallets@sampack.com.
WeatherTech General Contracting. We make your home renovation dreams a reality.
Metroplex Delivery is DFW's premier restaurant delivery service. Metroplex Delivery brings premium restaurant food right to your door. Metroplex Delivery offers uncompromising white glove treatment. Launching in McKinney and Allen. Give Metroplex Delivery a call at 469-505-0844 or online at www.metroplex.delivery. And by
Alan Lester, branch manager and team lead for the One Group, a branch of Town Square Mortgage. With over 22 years in the mortgage lending industry, Allen and Town Square Mortgage have many loan program options available from conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, jumbo, and many investor and self-employed programs. So if you're looking for the best in the business, give Allen a call at 214-681-0234.
If you would like to know how you and your business can sponsor this show or others like it, please contact us at info@thedifferenceradio.com. And now back to the show.
All right. Thanks again, sponsors. We couldn't do this without you, so happy to have you along, and look forward to the continued partnership. So, there we go. There's our Red River game. Always an awesome scene. I've only been in the game once, but for those who haven't been and may not know, it's at the Cotton Bowl, so it's at the State Fairgrounds right there in downtown Dallas. So it's awesome stadium. It's 100 years old or close to it. Right down the middle, they split it. You can see the burnt orange on the left and the Sooner red on the right. So it's split 50-50. Usually the weather's fantastic. It's always the second weekend of October. Yeah, on the state fairground. So the state fair is going on. So there, if you've been there in the morning, it's always a big party at the fair, and then after the game, it spills out into the fair. So couldn't ask for a cooler environment for a football game. And unfortunately, the football game itself didn't live up to the venue and the billing because it was an absolute beatdown. So a couple key takeaways, right? Oklahoma sucks. Number one, their program has been decimated. Venables has his work cut out for him as the new coach over there. So unfortunately, he doesn't have a lot to work with. We mentioned it earlier, that program has been stripped of a lot of talent when Lincoln Riley went out to USC. So either that or, good players just leaving through the transfer portal. So goes to show you when you have a change of coaching, especially in today's environment with NIL deals, didn't help keep them at OU. Certainly one of the premier programs where NIL deals are probably, value-wise pretty high. But that didn't keep them around because, the transfer portal, you can, without penalty, choose where you want to go. You can follow Lincoln Riley if you want. You can, get poached by another coach that wanted you the previous year. So OU has a work cut out for them getting back to relevance, which is going to be interesting as they transition to the SEC, because it's not going to get any easier for them as they move into the SEC. But the other key takeaway, in my opinion, is Texas, man. They've got a couple losses already on their record. The Texas Tech loss certainly hurts them, but that was without Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers looks like the real deal. They're already talking about him being number one draft pick overall next year, or not next year, 2 years, right? So, yeah, I mean, do you see Texas running the table? Because I think it's possible.
Here's what I would love to see. I'd like to see Texas run the table, and I'm not a Texas fan, and play Bama again in the playoffs.
No, that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, when it happened in Austin, when Bama beat them and struggled, I really felt then, I'm like, this could be a rematch. These two teams could see each other again, and oh my gosh, can you imagine the hype? The way that first game was played, and both teams didn't play as well as they're playing now. And if they keep trending up, dude, it will be one hell of a war. And I don't know that Texas couldn't beat them the next time around, especially with Ewers, if he doesn't get hurt.
Right. Well, it goes back to that comment we made earlier. Cowboys have the defense, right? And so does Texas. The defense wins championships. Texas has a defense this year, and they've got some studs in that defense. And they've got some studs on offense too. So Quinn Ewers has some tools to play with. They're running back. They got a couple wide receivers, that tight end. I mean, they're stacked. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
For all my Sooner fans, I just wanted to make sure that y'all kind of understood where the Sooners are right now.
Oh, lovely. It's a shame to do that to that lady too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I could theoretically see him running the table. Although, heck, the Big 12, they got some teams that are making some noise right now. I'd have to pull up Texas's remaining schedule, but I know with the parity in that league, I say parity, it's not a bad thing because most of the teams are all really solid. Oklahoma State comes to mind. I don't know if they're on Texas's schedule. I got to pull it up, but it wouldn't be an easy thing. It's certainly no given, but they've got the talent to do it. Longhorns football. There we go.
So TCU has Oklahoma State this weekend. That's going to be a decent matchup there. I mean, a very, very interesting one. I would think.
Well, yeah. So looking at the Longhorn schedule the rest of the way, they got Iowa State this weekend. so not a pushover, but theoretically should beat them on paper. Then you got OSU coming. It's at Oklahoma State, so at Stillwater, October 22nd. That'll be a good one. Because watching that game, that OSU game this weekend, they didn't play very well, but they ended up in the fourth quarter just pulling away. And I tell you what, man, they've got some wide receivers on that team that made some pretty amazing catches. So that should be a good one. Then they've got K-State, who's a good team. TCU, they're undefeated. They've got them. So, yeah, their schedule's tough. They go OSU.
Yeah, it's not a cakewalk.
No, man. They go at Stillwater against OSU. They go at K-State. They've got TCU at home. Then they have to go to Kansas, which I normally would say that's a gimme. But, man, Jayhawks. So that was that OSU Jayhawks game that was this past weekend, and that was awesome. That's where the game day crew was with ESPN, and then they finished the season at home against Baylor. So that'd be interesting. Like I said, it's just talent to do it. But
so here's a here's a dream scenario for finishing the college for the playoffs. USC gets in, Texas gets in, Alabama and Georgia get in, or Ohio State, but Alabama gets in. Texas beats USC in the first round, so that harkens back to the 2005 championship. And then it's Texas and Alabama in the championship game, which has been played, I guess, I don't remember what year that was. But that's when Colt McCoy got hurt, and everybody seems to believe, and I wouldn't dispute it, that that Texas would have beat Alabama. I think that was Nick's first Alabama championship. So it's been that far back, but that would kind of be a blast from the past.
Yeah, well, as fun as that would be, Texas has 2 losses already. So you need some Big Ten upsets to happen between Ohio State and Michigan, which they'll play each other. So one of those guys will hang a loss on one of the other ones.
So here's what I heard. Here's what I read the other day, and it means absolutely nothing. Somebody from the SEC's going, because it's like they own it. I'm an SEC fan, but I do think that it's tilted and weighted and biased and blah, 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 whatever. I think a Big Ten team is going to go. I think they almost have to. They were saying that if Texas ran the table, that it's a chance that USC or UCLA doesn't get in.
Yeah.
Simply because of who they played, strength of schedule. So I'd love to see USC in it, and Ohio State and USC are my 2 least favorite teams ever. And I can't tell you why, just don't like them. But for football, I think it would be, for the resurgence of what USC is doing, and you can't leave out UCLA either, but thank God it's going to 12 teams.
Yeah, I agree. Because, you talk about the teams that are in the hunt too. Like Clemson may have something to say about, who's going. So you can make an argument for, just like any other year, at least 6 teams, legit argument. And then there's probably 12 teams that, like Texas, may be on the outside looking in. But if they do run their schedule, the balance of their schedule, they come in with 2 losses and they're on a burner streak. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, they've beaten all those teams that we just ran down. How do you exclude a team like that? Whereas, yeah, like you said, UCLA, USC, they're playing all the, pardon my French, all the patsies out there on the West Coast. Besides those 2 teams, yeah, they can mop up out there. Utah may have something to say about that too, but who knows?
So think about the selection committee, though. If Texas continues this streak, and I mean, when I say continue, I mean go in and handle TCU with no doubt. It's not a tight game. It's not a close game. They dominate.
Have to hammer some of those teams,
right? Yeah. If they dominate the rest of the way, if I'm sitting on the selection committee, I'm thinking, well, it would be cool to see them in Alabama play again. because of the controversy in the first one. I don't know. I think it makes for good TV. I really do. And I think that that's a lot of what college football is about. I don't like that part of it. That's why I think the 12 game or the 12 team playoffs is going to be fun. I mean, March Madness is March Madness, not because of the top team that gets in there and may run the table. It's because of the top team that gets their ass whipped by somebody you never heard of.
Yeah, you always want to see upsets, right? And that's why I open it up to 12. If you get, one of these smaller conference teams that just happen to, catch the right day, right number, and have the right scheme set up because they got awesome coaches, then they can take down an Alabama in the future. Awesome. Let's do it.
Well, who was it last year in basketball? And not to get ahead of our seasons here, but wasn't it James Madison? Or who was it that went so far?
So I don't remember the teams, but it's the Loyolas of the world that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever, they made the Final Four, and the 12 seed, almost always the 12 seed upsets a 5. And last year I think was the first time second time a 15 seed is advanced. So all kinds of years, every year there's always something that is intriguing, whether it's close to happening or it actually does happen. And that's what makes March Madness so fun. So hopefully you can get a little bit more of that in the 12-team format in football. Unfortunately, you can't.
I'm old enough to remember that, and a lot of younger people wouldn't know this, but Gonzaga has not always been a household name.
No. For the last 10, 15, they have been, but before Mark Few really brought that program to prominence, they were always well coached. And who was it? Was it Stockton who was their big, or no? Whoever it was, he was their only notable player prior to that. But yeah, so they used to be that small mid-major that always kind of snuck in, but obviously they're a household name now. I know we're out of time here. I do want to mention real quick, Stars open their season tonight, so we will have a little bit of hockey coverage, whether you like it or not, Lennon, because my son still.
I love hockey. I love hockey. I'm going to tell you, I know we're over time, but so didn't know much about hockey till the Stars came to town. I was fortunate enough to get to watch them a lot back in the first few years they were here, and what I guess I never expected when you're at the football game, unless your son's playing in the offensive line or, you're watching the football, right? All the action centers around the ball, and you don't really watch a lot of off ball unless you're a geek or a coach or something like that. You're focused on the ball. What I loved about hockey is there's 6 or 7 games going on regardless of where the puck is. Mm-hmm. And you start seeing these guys kind of get a little animosity towards each other. And that was exciting for me because I'm like, man, this is awesome. This is, UFC on ice.
Yeah. And you're going 5 times faster than you could on, without being on skates on ice. So yeah, the speed is awesome. The game within the game, you can get away with a lot off the puck, and it's always, as a spectator who watches my son play on a regular basis, you can see who gets chippy with who, and you end up watching all the off puck stuff going on in the corners, which unfortunately the refs will catch up eventually and start watching that too. But yeah, it's a fun sport. It's a tough one to watch on TV because it's really difficult to follow the puck. I know back in the day, Fox used to broadcast. They had that whole technology where the puck would light up on your screen as it moved, and that didn't work very well. So they've got to find a better way to make it viewable on TV, to where you can truly follow the action as quickly as it goes. But I tell you, there's not many sports that compare when you watch it live. I was lucky enough last week. I went to the Stars game. They played Colorado, so the defending Stanley Cup champions. One of the final preseason tune-ups. So it was a preseason game, but I sat 4 rows behind the net that the Stars shot on twice, 3 periods, so they'll shoot on that net twice. And to sit there and see what a professional goalie faces, I've seen some pretty high-level high school hockey, which is one thing that, they're pretty badass and pretty good. But when you see, 100+ mile an hour slap shots coming at you and they hit the glass right at eye level, it's amazing to see what those guys do. So I'm looking forward to the season. Stars should be, my team, first love is the Blackhawks. They're on the opposite end of where the Stars are headed. So they're at the bottom of the heap right now. They're in a rebuild mode. So really the only thing I have to look forward to is will Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane, kind of the two remaining masterpieces of the 3 Stanley Cup championships that were won in the last decade by the Hawks. Are they going to stay on the team? Most likely they'll probably both be traded. So that will represent the final end of the dynasty for the Hawks. But Stars are on the upswing. They made it to the playoffs last year. They lost in what was the first round, Game 7 overtime in Calgary. So Calgary ended up going deep. So it's one of those, they had a great showing last year, didn't quite get over the hump. They've made some key changes. They didn't make a ton of changes, which is good. They made a couple key additions. They did change on the coaching staff. They brought in Pete DeBoer, who he came from the Golden Knights. So if you think about their lineage, right, DeBoer's whole thing is he's been very good right from the get-go. So he's done it in 2 different places, 2 or 3 different places. But with the Golden Knights, he took them to the finals in the first year that he was there. Did the same thing previous to that with the team he was at previous to that. So his track record is he's a fast starter with his new team. So they have him at the helm now. They locked up Jake Ottinger, their goalie, who is just a stud. And they've got him locked up, I think, for the next 4 years. They finally locked up their stud, Jason Robertson, their winger. So they got him for 4 years. So they've finally solidified some of the pieces that will be their future. They still have Ben and Sagan, a healthy Sagan coming into the season. So they should be, in a playoff team again this year. And if Ottinger can do what he did last year and some of these young guys can gel, Rope Hans is one of the fastest players in the league and fun to watch. So it should be a good season for the Stars. I look forward to that. So I will root for the Stars every time they do not play the Blackhawks. So unfortunately, they're in the same conference, so they play them quite a bit. But every other game, I'll be rooting for the Stars, and I enjoy following them.
All right, man. Sounds good. Before we close out, I finally found it was Providence in the NCAA tournament last year that got on a roll. They took out looks like they took out Richmond. They ended up playing Kansas, who won it. And then they played. So, yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's always fun to watch those upsets. So as long as you're not the the blue blood on the other side, take
St. Peter's made it to the Elite 8. So St. Peter's was another one.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Purdue and beat Murray State. So, but always good to watch that.
Indeed. Well, that's it for this week, I guess. That's got some good NFL games going on. We didn't really touch on the big college matchups coming up, but I know there's a few. I know the Big Ten had a good one. I think it's Penn State, Michigan, maybe, but I don't have it up on my screen. But there are at least 3 good NFL matchups. If you want to go to sleep early, watch my Bears duke it out with the Commanders tonight. And we'll be back on the same time next Thursday at noon. Talk about all those games and all the good stuff coming up the following week. So until then, have a great weekend, and we'll see y'all later.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week again for a fresh round.